What is it about this group where resiliency, things like what happened to Sophie, what is it about them that seems to bring the best out in them?
First and foremost, they're good human beings. You know, they're selfless, they're tough, and every single person on this roster is valued for how they impact women, whether they play a second or not. They give and give and give to this team, and I'm thankful for this group.
The Indiana Fever were already missing every single true point guard. And then Sophie Cunningham went down hard in a collision that wasn't even called a foul. The arena erupted, the fans went crazy, and suddenly the team was on the brink of collapse, down by 21. But here's the twist. What looked like disaster turned into the biggest comeback in franchise history. So how did Kelsey Mitchell and Lexie Hull flip that script and turn outrage into revenge? Let's break it down, because this finish wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And the Indiana Fever walked into this game already handcuffed. No Caitlin Clark running the point, no veteran backup like Erica Wheeler or Christy Wallace to handle the ball, nobody with experience controlling the offense. Instead, the responsibilities fell to whoever could dribble the ball past half court without panicking against the Suns' defense. That's a nightmare when you're facing one of the league's most physical teams. Imagine showing up to a boxing match without gloves. That's what it looked like at the start. The coach had no choice but to strip down the offense to simple sets, just basic pick and rolls and post entries, hoping they could at least get Aaliyah Boston some touches inside. There was no room for creativity, no playmaking from the guard spot, just survival basketball. For the first few minutes, the Fever held on. It wasn't pretty, but they were in the game. Wings like Lexie Hull and Grace Berger were essentially acting as ball handlers.
Sophie Cunningham went out in the first half, and that was such a huge blow for the Indiana Fever because Sophie Cunningham has been somebody, she has been the glue of this team since Caitlin has been out. So as you can see here, Bria Hartley is going baseline, Kelsey Mitchell is guarding her, and then Sophie comes over to help. And then Bria Hartley falls on her leg and Sophie immediately grabs like her shin area. She is playing so incredibly well during the second half of this season. She plays hard every single night. She's super tough. She doesn't make excuses. Like, she is somebody who has really held this team together.
Every dribble felt like it could turn into a turnover. The Sun pressured hard, trapping near the sidelines, forcing passes that barely escaped deflections. It was tense, but then the moment that changed everything hit like a gut punch. Sophie Cunningham drove down the lane, made contact, and went crashing to the floor. No whistle. She stayed down holding her side, and the crowd erupted in anger. You could feel the anger pour out of the stands like a wave. Teammates ran over, pointing and shouting at the official, but nothing. Play moved on like she wasn't even there. That was the breaking point. Fans weren't just upset, they were boiling. Cunningham is one of those gritty, emotional players who brings energy every possession, and to see her taken out without a call felt like a robbery. The Sun didn't waste the chaos. They sensed weakness, cranked up the physicality, and suddenly the scoreboard told the story. Indiana was staring at a 21-point hole before halftime. The place that had been buzzing with energy now felt like all the air had been sucked out. Think about the challenge the Fever faced in that moment. No true floor general, backup wings trying to dribble against double teams, bigs like Boston and Turner left swarmed inside by quicker defenders. The system didn't look like a system anymore. It looked like desperate passes around the perimeter until the shot clock nearly ran out. Each possession was a grind, and the frustration kept building. You could see the body language shift, heads dropping after turnovers, players staring at refs instead of sprinting back in transition. The mental toll was just as heavy as the scoreboard. By halftime, it was ugly. The Sun were loose, smiling on the bench, while the Fever trudged into the locker room down big with their star forward injured. It wasn't just about trailing in points. It looked like their confidence had been shredded. The game had turned from competition into survival mode, but something shifted in that locker room. The players had a choice: let the game spiral or use exactly this kind of adversity as fuel. Cunningham had gone down, the refs weren't giving them anything, the fans were restless, so the team came out with a different mindset. One of them falls, another picks it up. If somebody is knocked down, then another has to rise because no one else is coming to rescue them. And here's the part nobody saw coming. At halftime, it looked like the Fever were already done. The Sun were rolling rolling, the crowd was frustrated, and Indiana was running an offense held together with tape. Then the second half started, and Kelsey Mitchell turned the game into her own showcase. She had only a few points at the break, not much impact at all, but then it clicked. Every time she touched the ball, something happened. Pull-up jumpers, drives that sliced through 2 defenders, shots off balance that fell anyway. Mitchell went from invisible to unstoppable in a matter of minutes. By the end of regulation, she had racked up 34 points in just the second half alone. That's not only dominant, that's one of the greatest bursts of scoring the Fever have ever seen. You could feel the Sun getting tight. Early on, they had controlled the game with pressure defense, making it impossible for the Fever to even set up a play. But when one player gets so locked in that nothing seems to bother them, the whole math of the game changes. Mitchell was hitting overhands, beating traps before they could form, and driving straight at defenders who had bullied Indiana in the first half. The Sun couldn't stop her without sending extra help, and that's when everything else opened up. But it wasn't only about Mitchell going supernova. For a comeback like this to actually happen, Indiana needed someone to settle the pace, to make sure they didn't just ride the hot hand into chaos, and that's exactly what Odyssey Sims did. This wasn't some quiet role either. Sims poured in 19 points and dropped 7 assists, but it was the 13 rebounds from a guard that crushed the Suns' rhythm. Every time Connecticut thought they'd get an extra possession, Sims was there, ripping the ball down and igniting another attack. She wasn't just filling in as a point guard, she was dictating the tempo. Now you had a new formula, Mitchell torching defenders one-on-one, Boston steady in the paint as an outlet for relief passes, and Sims orchestrating everything like a conductor. The Fever that looked broken at halftime were suddenly fluid, and the Sun, who had looked loose and confident earlier, now had to scramble to contain a team they thought had already folded. The most emotional moment came in overtime. After all that work just to stay alive, the Fever had taken the lead, but the Sun were still within striking distance. With under a minute to play, the ball swung to the weak side, and Lexie Hull stood alone in the corner. All game long, she had done the dirty work, handling the ball against pressure, digging on defense, trying to steady the group after Cunningham went down. Now, with the game on the line, the ball found her. No hesitation. She rose up and buried the 3. The building erupted. That shot wasn't just a score, it felt like revenge, payback for the moment Cunningham lay on the floor earlier. It was as if the team said, "We're not going out like that." The Fever finished it off, 99-93, erasing a 21-point deficit and pulling off the largest comeback in franchise history. From broken plays and frustration to a record-breaking rally, the night flipped on its head, and in doing it, Indiana showed more than just toughness. They showed identity, because this wasn't a miracle shot or a lucky break. It was proof of how this roster responds when everything seems stacked against them, and that kind of proof carries weight heading into the playoff chase. This game showed something bigger than just numbers on the board. Indiana isn't about who they don't have. It's about who decides to fight when the pressure is on. That's the identity they created on this night. You can see it in the way the bench reacted and how the team leaned on each other when it looked finished. It makes Coach White's message of not counting them out more than motivational talk. It's lived proof. If they carry this exact fight into the playoffs, no opponent takes them lightly. Nobody underestimates this group again after what they just witnessed.